You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hi, I'm Joe Heath.
I'm Toni Heath.
And this is the Watch-A-Thon of Rassilon.
Yep.
Cool. Let's do it. Today we're going to be talking about the 8th and 9th episodes of the second series of Doctor Who, The Impossible Planet, and The Satan Pit, which aired from June 3rd, 2006 to June 10th, 2006, and directly in the middle of those dates was June 6th, 2006, also known as 6606. True facts! And joining us today is returning guest Adam Clegg. Welcome back!
Thank you. Good to be back. Let's worship Satan.
Woo! That's all I've wanted from this podcast, is to convert people to Satanism.
That's true.
And today, it's paying off. So, was this done on purpose?
The 666?
Yeah. Like, it's bookending.
There's no way. There's absolutely no way that they could have been that organized and executed something like that. I simply don't believe it.
I don't know. Could be. I don't know what I was going to say. How you doing?
I am very well, thanks. It's great to be back. I think last time I was on, it was talking about Empty Child.
Yep.
And this is another two-parter that I'm really fond of, which I watched this morning, and I was like, oh yeah, this is really good. Certainly in terms of mysterious, godlike beings that come back, that are voiced by Gabriel Wolfe. This is the better of the, I feel, of the modern episodes, or at least didn't make me grit my teeth so much. Maybe because at the end, the Doctor doesn't go, I know you're Satan, but killing you makes me bad. That's enough about how to take your dog for a walk in the time vortex. Or not, as the case may be.
I will say, I like that two-parter, but it's definitely got lots of issues.
I mean, I love the whole season overall, and I was really excited watching it. It didn't quite land for me. Apart from anything with Mrs. Flood, who absolutely saved every scene she was in, I thought. And
yeah.
Looking forward to more of her. A less CGI dog.
I liked the one scene in the desert place, and I liked the fact that RTD likes The Last Jedi.
That's true. The thing I liked about the desert scene was, have you ever seen Fleabag?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was Fleabag's sister, Claire. It was Claire in that scene, and I was just like, all I could think of was, I look like a fucking pencil the entire time.
I did not recognize her.
No, I for ages I was going, I know you, and then I was like, pencil.
All right, so
yes,
let's talk about this one, yeah?
Okay.
All right. I'm going to do a summary, and then we'll just dive right in. And I have given both a serial title, a serial title for this two-parter, and I've renamed the episodes.
Okay, let's hear it.
The serial, the Demons 2, The Creature in the Pit. That's what I've called it.
That's the whole thing is the title?
Yeah, The Demons 2, The Creature in the Pit.
Okay.
Part 1, Welcome to Hell.
I mean, that's pretty good.
The Doctor and Rose arrive inside of a sanctuary base on an impossible planet orbiting a black hole. They find an exploration team of various character types, complete with a slave race of aliens called the Ood. They are drilling into the planet to find a mysterious source of power. Their archaeologist Toby gets possessed after looking at some untranslatable pots and kills the engineer Scooty. The Doctor and a scientist named Ida go down into the drilled out section and find a great big hatch that opens up into a great big pit. Meanwhile, Toby spreads his possession to the Ood. And that is the end of part 1. Part 2, I've called Ood Occurrences. The elevator cable snaps, trapping the Doctor and Ida down near the pit. Everyone else runs from the possessed Ood by going through maintenance tunnels. The Doctor jumps into the pit while the remaining upstairs survivors take off in a rocket. The Doctor meets a gigantic devil who turns out to be mindless because his mind is in Toby aboard the rocket. Rose shoots out the window, sending Toby into space. The Doctor smashes some vases, Link from Zelda style, sending the planet and the rocket hurtling toward the black hole. However, the Doctor luckily finds his TARDIS and flies everyone out of the suck of the black hole.
Could you have phrased that any other way?
Nope.
Okay.
And that is my summary of this two-parter. Thoughts? You generally grade me.
Oh, on your summary?
Yeah.
10 out of 10. I'm feeling very generous today.
I mean, I said flies everyone out of the suck of the black hole, and you're giving me a 10 out of 10?
I'm in a good mood.
All right,
and
I'll
I
take
am
it.
very fickle.
Do you have a grade for me, Adam?
I thought that was magnificent. I mean, you covered all the main points. I honestly couldn't have done better.
I feel appreciated and loved. The first thing I want to mention, one thing that bugs me and one thing that's wrong. One, the thing that is wrong, you can orbit a black hole. That's fine. RTD even mentions it in the commentary, and he's like, yeah, sure, just not this one.
He said, don't Google this.
Two, at the beginning, when they land on the thing, and they run into the Doctor's like, what planet is this? And she's like, it doesn't have a name. And then later she says, it's called Croctor. So which is it? Does it not have a name, or is it Croctor? That's it. That's all I got.
I think I've talked before on the podcast about how I feel like Doctor Who is run by twin engines of wonder and fear, and that's what this episode is about. And so I like it a lot.
Okay.
The idea of there's so many times in the episode where the Doctor's like, ooh, there's a mystery and I want to solve it, but the smart thing to do would be walk away. So maybe we should do that. And it's like, oh, but I gotta know. I gotta jump. I gotta fall.
Gotta take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
It's that bit with the human crew where he goes, you're wonderful, humanity, you're great, but what the hell are you doing here? This is a really bad idea. And I think you're right, it's a real theme throughout this one, because I particularly love the second episode, actually. I particularly love David Tennant's performance in the second episode, because I always feel, actually, he's most interesting when the 10th Doctor's got quieter moments. We tend to associate him as being a very big, out there Doctor, but actually when he pulls it back and you just get these conversations, I think he's fantastic. And there's that whole thing where he's talking to Ida particularly about, first of all, there's a conversation about jumping from branch to branch as an evolutionary thing, jumping into the unknown, and he goes, no, that's too kind. It's really the desire to fall. In some ways, the Doctor talking about his own desire to travel, maybe not consciously, but yeah, there's very much this thing of, even he eventually goes, maybe we shouldn't go down the big pit. I'm actually going to leave now. But obviously can't. But I find it, it's this real thing, isn't it? Of like, this is great, but no, this is, even by the Doctor's standards, like, we shouldn't be here. Like,
fear is the thing that holds you back and keeps you from doing dumb things. But if you always only listen to fear, you would never discover new things. And so wonder and wonder, curiosity is what pushes you forward. And I think living in the tension between those two things of is very fun. Of do I go forward because I'm curious and we can discover something just because? Why is this here? Why is it like this? I gotta know. And the smart thing to do would be just not worry about it. I love it so much. I'm thinking about these two things all the time.
El Sandifer, I think she talks about in this era how RTD's got this thing about the Doctor travelling as what's the word? God, it's completely gone out of my head.
Metaphor?
No, I'm gonna say euphoric, but not euphoric.
Euphemism.
No, just being a pure pleasure, I can't think of it. But there's a darker side to that, and the way RTD writes about it, it's always like the Doctor's like, this is great, this is wonderful, let's go and do this, but then doesn't like to talk about the underbelly of that. And I think this crops up in here. It crops up a lot, but here it's kind of like running that tension running underneath it. Hedonistic, that's it. That's the word I couldn't think of. Hedonistic.
Ooh, okay,
the
yeah.
Doctor travelling as a hedonistic act, and then but hedonism always has a downside, an underbelly to it.
You guys are talking about such smart stuff, and I have notes like, the Doctor looks like Jim Carrey when he's in that scuba mask thing.
We all contribute in our ways.
That suit is so iconic.
Yeah. This is the first time it shows up?
Yeah. I mean, it's specifically from that base. And the way his face is lit up, he looks so stupid sometimes. And I love it.
It's weird enough, I've never thought of it before, but while watching this, I thought, he must have picked up another helmet for it at some point, because he smashes the faceplate.
Oh, yeah.
Good point.
I don't know why, I just popped in my head, like, he must have like had a little adventure where you got a spare at some moment.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
It's Big Finish will write about it.
It'd be a 20 box set thing, which no one will be able to get because the app doesn't work still. So
it'll have River Song in it and Ginny. Those two will be in it for sure. I haven't listened to any Big Finish, but I've listened to podcasts about Big Finish, and apparently they're in all of them.
That's obsessively nerdy.
Yeah, I know.
Why are you listening to podcasts about Big Finish when you haven't even listened to Big Finish?
Because it's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper just to listen to the podcasts.
True. To be fair, though, it's mostly because I'm listening to a podcast where they're talking about stuff, and then at the end, one of them was like, here's a recommendation for if you want more stuff like this, but it's from the expanded stuff. So it's Big Finish or the novels or whatever. So, also, I'm a huge nerd. That's also why. But yeah, I think all of the doctors have worn that orange jumpsuit, I think.
Yeah, no, didn't Capaldi have a different suit in Empress Mars? Like, they tried to update it, but then they brought it back with Jodie. Because Chibnall never watched the Capaldi era. I'm trying to think if... No, actually, no. I think he wore it in Kill the Moon. So yeah, I think everyone's worn it. I'm trying to think when Matt Smith wore it. Must have done. Because you're right, it turns up all the time.
The new Doctor hasn't worn it. I can't remember numbers all of a sudden. 15.
We've gotten so far.
14 didn't wear it either, but he was only there for like a second or two.
14 doesn't count.
14 doesn't count. And there's still time. He could still wear it.
He wears it in Big Finish.
Do you think they'll do a Big Finish with 14?
I don't know what the... why?
It's just gonna be a sitcom of them, of the Doctor and Donna hanging out.
Oh, yeah.
And they just keep completely missing big events.
This is what I really like about... I know 14... Like, people have mixed feelings about it. I really like the idea of 14 being with Donna because... anytime, like, something massive is happening, and you're like, and 14's just doing what? And it's like, he's with Donna, he doesn't even know. Like, Donna's thing affects him now. They're having brunch. Like,
I don't think they should necessarily bring it back, but I think, if they did, it should just be scenes in, like, big finales where he's just doing stuff and not being aware, like he's there painting little miniatures and everything turns to dust and then he just carries on when he comes back and doesn't even notice.
That would be fantastic.
There's something about the button on that amuses me. Are you looking up suit stuff?
Yeah, apparently Danny wore it at one point in Listen.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Matt Smith did wear it, but I don't see what episode it's in. Everybody's talking about literally every other episode. Hyde.
Oh, God. I haven't watched Hyde for years, actually, thinking about it. But, oh, yeah. Yeah, that does ring a bell.
I don't even remember what Hyde's about.
Oh, there's a picture of all of them in it. They look cute!
I don't know what Jodie wore, which episode Jodie wore it in, because I don't remember Jodie's
any of that.
Hardly at all.
Can we talk about the Ood and how much I love them?
And how problematic they are.
Are they problematic? I feel like that's the wrong word to describe what they are. You mean like...
The Doctor lets them all die.
But I think RTD felt bad enough about that they did do Planet of the Ood, because it was kind of... And it is kind of acknowledged as well throughout. I mean, we keep saying RTD, technically this is written by Matt Jones, but I think the consensus is that it's kind of an RTD script.
Like he rewrote it quite a bit.
Yeah, if Matt Jones had written this, they'd have had him back at some point. That sounded way harsher than I meant it to.
All right.
Fuck Matt Jones, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, but it just felt like a very RTD joke that the guy on the ethics committee is the one in charge of the slave race.
Also, RTD definitely named them the Ood because he thought that was funny. That they were odd and Ood. So he talks about it on the Confidential that he named them the Ood. Fun fact, they were originally going to be Raxacorcal Fallopatorians, and then when they're like, oh, we could fix these suits up, or we could just make new suits and it would cost the same amount. So they're like, we'll make new monsters then. And then it was almost the Takla thing, but then they pushed that off again till next season.
I actually like a lot about the way that the Ood are written, because this is something that is very good about Rose's character, is that Rose is kind of always interacting with people who are meant to be invisible.
Yeah.
That she's always interacting with, service workers and servants in ways of like, it's like when you are in a retail store and you're like, yeah, no, I've done this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry for being a customer. I like Rose sort of getting out into the big world and like meeting injustices that are treated as normal and like getting a chance to react to that. It's interesting to me and like wondering of like, if you feel like the Doctor has an obligation to fix that.
Right.
Or not. Because I feel like if you think he does, that is where you get Jodie Whittaker Space Police kind of thing. That's not fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm actively trying to work something out in my head. I'm not about to say something clever. I'm turning a thing over in my head.
I'm just pitching a series in my head called Jodie Whittaker Space Police, which is about a northern actress who ends up having to be a space cop due to a series of admin misunderstandings. It's already quite entertaining. I think I'll write to Big Finish, see if they can get that one going.
I'd watch that. I think that's better than her era. So,
but you know what?
It's Galaxy Quest, but for Doctor Who.
You know where that question is like really interestingly played with is Planet of the Ood, where Donna's like, do something. It's another fun tension to play with, I guess.
I couldn't help but also get. I hate bringing this up nowadays, but it reminds me of Harry Potter a bit with Hermione and the house elves, especially the bit when Rose is like, "Wait, they're slaves," and then they're like, "Oh, she sounds like one of those."
People who's against slavery.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Which reminded me a lot of Hermione and the house elves.
But I think we're actually supposed to think Rose is right, unlike Hermione in the books, where you like that they never lead a revolution on that one. It's like, no, they like it.
No.
Yeah.
God, how did we not know you were going to be massively problematic in the future? I mean,
there were signs.
Yeah, we just didn't see them.
I also like the bit where she references school reunion, where she's like, I used to be a dinner lady too. I thought that scene was very nice too. And then it has that like very terrifying and funny bumper where he says,
we must feed.
Well, no, that's the beginning. He says something about like the beast will rise and fight God or whatever. And then she's like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, hits his thing. He goes, sorry, I meant enjoy your meal. It's very terrifying and also very funny. The we must feed was at the beginning when they show up and they're like, we must feed. And then it's like, hits the thing. Sorry, we must feed you food if you're hungry. So.
What did you say? That was...
No, it was Hallie who said...
it was Hallie.
To serve man in reverse.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I really like about this is, I remember when I originally watched this, back in 2006, but thinking, oh yeah, it'll be like a supercomputer or something. It's not going to be actual say. No, of course not. Of course it isn't. And I love the fact that it kind of is. And they use it to bring up all these ideas of faith without ever giving an answer. It's to the point where I think it's the first time we've ever had the Doctor contemplate his own faith or what he has faith in. I mean, it's kind of a theme in Curse of Fenric, obviously, and we have, in that you have the Doctor muttering the companions' names and stuff. But here, where he's just like, oh yeah, there are things that I believe, but maybe they're wrong. He's like, if he'd said beyond the universe, but before, he can't quite get his head around that. And there's the thing about, well, I guess I travelled to be proven wrong, which I love that moment. I love the Doctor hanging in pure darkness, just talking about what he does or doesn't believe, or having to confront what he does or doesn't believe and what they might be facing. Again, it's one of my favourite moments in the Tennant era. It's not a big, like, Murray Gold score welling up moment, but it's just, I just think it's brilliant. And the fact, it isn't I was so convinced it was going to be a supercomputer, and I think RTD said for ages they didn't know what was going to be in the pit. It might have been Davros at one point, and that was apparently a serious consideration. And this is better.
There was also, I believe, a child at one point, or a very old man.
I love the idea of a very old man.
Like,
imagine if it was just like
I think maybe it was a
one
giant
rubber
old man.
duck, and
One
you're like,
rubber duck.
"What's the deal with this rubber duck?"
And it was just,
Or for Vince, a children's toy phone.
yeah, toy phone that rings.
David Lynch in his Twin Peaks character. It's just like, Coop, is that you? It's a planet. Some kind of black hole.
Let me check my notes. Okay, one thing I do want to...
I'm sorry, because I also looked at your notes when you said that, and you have a note that says, Big Devil.
I wanted to make sure we talked about it.
Okay.
There's a big devil in this, ain't there? It's all CG, not a child or David Lynch or anything like that. Do you think it holds up?
The CG?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things, it's good for the time, but, you know, they keep it in kind of darkness, so that helps. It's not like, because Torchwood, at the end of the first series, had a similar large devil that doesn't look as good because they kind of shoot it during the daytime. And I think it is supposed to have some connection. There's references to this episode made in, like, the Torchwood Series 1 final.
Yeah, I think it's like the son of the beast.
Yeah, something. They're vague, but they kind of do it, if I remember right, like I said, it's bright kind of Cardiff daytime, and it's like, this doesn't work nearly as well.
It wasn't so much that I, was distracting. It's not the dragon in that one episode of Sliders.
Speaking of dragons, though, it did remind me of the dragon in Merlin, whenever he'd go into that cave and talk to the dragon, because, the scale, especially, of, Merlin's this big, the doctor's this big, and then there's a giant CG dragon or devil, depending on the show that they are talking to. The doctor talks to him for a very long time, even after he realizes there's nothing in it. Is there a connection? I don't know. I think it's interesting that there's, both a big hole, a pit, and a black hole in the sky. I think that they're, opposite each other, and I think that's very neat. They, mirror each other in a weird way. Does that mean anything?
I mean, I think it's the idea of wanting to know what's inside of a black hole, even though it's probably nothing. Probably just being dead.
Yeah.
Because the first episode of this and the atmosphere in it, I love the kind of nihilistic, almost sad quality to it. Actually, really reminds me, maybe obviously, of at least the first part of the Disney film, The Black Hole, which I find a fascinating film because I think the first half is fantastic, where it's got this odd atmosphere of low key dread and again, nihilism and things for a Disney film. And then the moment people start shooting lasers, it gets really bad. But this is better because the moment people start shooting, it still stays quite good. But it's that same kind of something about, I think there's something about the idea of a black hole that inspires a certain kind of atmosphere because it is so permanent and final. And, people are fascinated with them for obvious reasons because it's, if you could go through on and not get spaghettified, but, there's something so heavy, time doesn't work in them. And we know that. So
yeah,
I think you wind up as a ghost in your daughter's bedroom. I'm pretty sure. And then you can push dust around.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what you do.
That is science.
Christopher Nolan has never steered me wrong before, so I trust him. Speaking of things we don't know about, what do you think Jefferson, the security guy, what did he do to his wife?
What did he do to his wife?
I think she watched Alien 3 and was like, this isn't great. Which, by the way, Danny Webb is the third Doctor Who cast member who's also been in Alien 3, because Brian Glover and Paul McGann, there may be one of the others. I can't think of all the cast.
Oh, so that guy is in Alien 3? I've also pushed Alien 3 out of my mind because I don't like it.
Yeah, he's quite major. He survives right to the end, actually. He's quite a big role. Yeah, I know. No one remembers poor Danny Webb. He's a good actor, and he's always turning up and stuff. But people tend to forget one of his major Hollywood features,
I forget, is that a hot take from you?
I think it's slightly a hot take. Some people like Alien 3 because it's a David Fincher film, and I think that may be the only reason why. I don't know.
Ironically, David Fincher doesn't like Alien 3, so...
Good on him, because it's not good.
But I mean, there's so many little character moments, aren't they, where they hint at backgrounds or things that aren't. And I think it works that it's not expanded on. It's just kind of there. It adds a layer to the characters. It's that RTD thing of being able to kind of pencil in depth that we don't necessarily get to see, but hints at something deeper in the past.
Speaking of the crew, I like the crew, and I remembered all of them, again, except for Jefferson. I honestly did forget about him. It just must be something about that guy. But I also forgot that there are so many other crew members who have no lines and just die.
Can I point out they never get when the captain reads out, like, these people, the names of the crew members who die with honours. I don't think those nameless guys ever get mentioned. It's like, Extra 1 died with honours. Extra 2 died with honours. The one with the hair died with honours. Even the Uda getting mentioned at the end.
Think about that. He goes through there's 50 of them, and then there's just people we don't know.
There's actually 2 more deaths that we don't see in this episode that are in the TARDISodes, the little prequel promo things. We actually see the actual captain, because Zach's the acting captain. We see him take on the mission to head out to the planet. And I guess we assume he dies. And then the second one, we see just another crew member who is died of possession, which I don't think makes any sense, but whatever. It's just to promote the episode. I don't know how canon it is. I think there was lines that referenced it in the actual episode that got cut. So any sort of sense it made makes less sense now. So
I made a coworker, I almost made them do a spit take because, like, very passionately told them, I forget what we were talking about, but he was wondering if something was canon, and I said, "Oh, you don't know? There's no such thing as canon. It's not real." And he was like, "You said that so forcefully." And I was like, "I believe it. I believe it to the very core of my being." He did not agree.
There's levels. That's what I'll say.
I don't know if you know this. It's all make-believe. And we're all just telling each other stories. And that's why it's so fun.
There literally used to be levels, I believe, in Star Wars before Disney basically went the extended universe stuff. They'd be like, level 1 is the films, level 2 are these novels, level 3 is this. And it would be like this increasingly complex like map. I was never really into Star Wars, sorry, but I was aware of it, and just like this increasingly like people like that Always Sunny meme with Charlie and the board pointing at it manically. It was very much like that.
I imagine you'd have like, this stuff works, but then there's stuff that's like, well, this is like, what if Darth Vader was good? And stuff like that.
I mean, are you aware that in the novels, Chewbacca was killed by a moon? I believe they dropped a moon on him and he died.
I don't even know how you do that, but okay. I do know they did do, I think it might have been a comic where it was like, what if Darth Vader was good? And he looks exactly like Darth Vader, but his costume is white. So
that doesn't seem like a good look, actually.
No. And it's like, it's still the, like, scary face, cape, the whole 9 yards, just also white. So.
Christ. I mean, actually, it's interesting talking about fandoms, because what I love about the story is the ambiguities to it. You never get complete explanations. Like, even the Doctor at the end says, we never know what that writing said. It's interesting to compare it to something like 73 Yards, where a lot of people are going, but we're going to get definite explanations about what happened, like in the finale or something. And it's like, well, no, you're not. It's quite clear that's not the kind of story it's telling. You don't have to like that, but it's very clear, like, what kind of horror films and things and what kind of literature it's pulling from. And this is a similar way the Doctor's like, I love it. I love it when the Doctor comes against something he doesn't know and you don't get complete explanations for it. And I quite like that, again, RTD coming back is kind of leaning more into that side. What we see here, what we see in these episodes isn't called magic, or, I mean, there's references to gods, but it's not much of a push to think of it as. We never get any, like, oh, the demon has these psychokinetic powers or anything. It's very much just like, he just is.
I like very much when things don't have to be explained, or the fact that they're not going to be explained is, like, part of the story. Right? Like, there are some things you don't understand. End of sentence. Like, you're gonna come across them and you just kind of gotta roll with it. Good luck.
And speaking of comparisons to the latest finale 2-parter, I think this also works a little bit better because they give the devil a face. They give him a human body to inhabit, which they kind of do a little bit in the finale, but not enough. He's mostly just the CGI dog. But like in this, you get Toby. I think he's really good. The guy who plays him. Very menacing, but also very like terrified when he's not possessed. He switches between the two very well.
Yeah, and that's something else I like. You never quite know when he's possessed and when he isn't. Like, because originally it's like, oh, the Yuda are possessed, so he's not. And then later we find out he is. But is he possessed that entire time?
Or is he just hiding?
Yeah, and I find it interesting. Yeah, no, I think it works a lot. I think, this was actually one of my problems with Empire of Death, is that at the end of the day, it is just an actor speaking to a big CGI creation. And again, I don't want to end up talking about Shooty Season more, but something like the Toymater works when you bring him back because you cast an actual actor that the Doctor can then bounce off and have scenes with. And you're right, having that human element makes a huge difference, particularly if you're dealing with godlike beings. I think it provides a kind of grounding. Although, as I said, I had my real what's it they call it, the Mandela effect moment, because I thought Gabriel Wolf had died and I'd read his obituary. And then they're like, he's back watching Sutek. I was like, how? Was it necromancy? And then I'm like, he's still alive. I'm sure, I'm happy that he was still alive. But I was just a bit like, you sure? Because I was watching it going, they've got someone doing quite a good Gabriel Wolf impression here. I was like, oh. But and again, it's interesting because I remember when I watched Impossible Planet the first time, I remember going, that guy sounds familiar. That guy sounds really familiar. And then like, going the credits going, oh, okay. But I never thought it was Sutek they were bringing back.
It wasn't written for him initially anyway. It was going to be somebody else, and then they wound up casting Gabriel Wolf. So it wasn't like, oh, we're going to make him Sutek. That wasn't like the intention at any point. It's only been tied together, I think, in the Shooty episode. So my favorite scene, I do really enjoy all the religious and talks in that void, but I think one of the best scenes in this serial, just the way it's shot, the way it's that it's acted, and the music and all the pieces, is the scene where Scooty finds Toby outside of the station, just on the planet, and he turns around and looks at her, and it's very creepy, and like he beckons her, and she almost reaches out for him initially, but then like she says no, and then like he busts open the window and she flies out to die. I think that whole segment just has just an intense mood to it, and it's very, very well done. That blinking light behind Scooty also just looks rad. It just looks rad.
Oh yeah, and I think actually Murray Gold's score in this is really good. Like, he has this kind of, you don't hear it so much in the second episode, but in the first, it has this, I don't know if it's cello playing, kind of like, it's not the full orchestra that you always expect with Gold, but it's just very atmospheric.
It almost sounds a little folksy a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of stripped back in a way that we don't tend to associate with him, and I think that's effective. But no, it's great. I mean, I love it when Doctor Who is Team Time Terror for tots. It's. I think there were children terrified by this, and that's correct and good and how it should be. But it is always interesting as well, because Doctor Who, I say Doctor Who tends to play with the look of horror, but it's actually rarely horror. It tends to be more like jump scares, which is a sort of horror, but here it really does lean into that.
Yeah, because when I think about this serial, I feel like most people's first thought is the giant devil, but mine is always Toby standing on that planet, just with the wind whipping him, and he's just standing there. That's the first thing I think of. That's the most embedded in my brain image. So then it's probably the giant devil, then Tennant hanging in the
Yeah, my
the void.
first one's definitely the pit.
Yeah. I know we keep talking about new Who, I guess. But I do think it's interesting that the Doctor and Rose have a conversation because they've lost the TARDIS, and they just talk about settling down, and the Doctor is incredibly opposed to this idea. Living in a house, can you imagine that? That'd be horrible. And that's exactly what happens.
That's where 14 is.
Yeah, living in a house.
Do you think 14 has a mortgage? Or do you think he kind of just lives, like, at Donna's?
I mean, he probably lives inside the TARDIS. He's just, like, living in an RV, basically.
He's living in an RV in Donna's backyard.
Yeah. I do think that scene is very good because You know, there's a lot of Dr. Rose shipping type stuff, even in this episode. Like, he believes in her and that sort of thing. And then tell her, well, she already knows, that whole thing. But also, this scene, I think, specifically kind of points out how it probably wouldn't work. She's like, we could live together. And he's like, and she's like, doesn't even notice him not reacting very great to that idea. She's just off in her own fantasy for a minute.
I just picture her as the one with the job and coming back home every day, and he'd just sit on the couch. You know, when are you going to do something? You go, I'm the last of the Time Lords. Like, get a fucking job. Oh, I'm the last of the Time Lords.
Being the last of the Time Lords does not pay the bills.
You can still work retail.
But back to that, the scene of Scooty, which is a great name, by the way. I like Scooty.
Scooty's a pretty good name.
Her getting sucked into space and them finding her body. That was filmed in a water tank.
Ah.
That's how they got it to look so cool. Apparently it was pretty damn expensive to do for like a shot that's maybe 10 seconds, but it's really effective, I think.
Yeah.
Because her hair is all weightless and it's holding her breath, and like they have a diver twisting her foot so she turns. I think that also looks really good. I think that still holds up. It doesn't look like she's underwater. I assumed it was green screen or something, but I don't know. It's water. Okay, you said when people start shooting, it doesn't get bad. But there is one gunshot in this serial that I question. Toby turns into the devil in that rocket when they're being...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about this.
And then she pulls a gun out, and I thought, oh, she's going to shoot Toby, because I didn't remember what happened. She doesn't shoot Toby. She shoots the window out, and he gets sucked into space, which is admittedly more dramatic looking, but also stupid.
I think it's one of the things that ultimately in the children's show that adults adore, you can't have the companions taking headshots at people and blowing their brains out. As much as those of us who play first-person shooters know that's the most effective way to do it. If Rose did it on BBC Saturday Tea Time, it might take problems. But it does mean Toby gets one of those great deaths of like falling down in slow motion, going whoa, which is how I want to go. You know,
you want a Hans Gruber into a black hole? Basically,
just like whoa. So, but yeah, I know it is one of the things that, like, she's lucky, that the boat... You know, I worry about the glass that's supposed to protect you from the vacuum of space that can't stand one boat being fired at it. It's like...
And it's also good that there's a secondary shield that can come down.
Just luckily, like, there's no way she could have known that, but, you know, well done, Rose.
It's very much like we've been watching the X-Men cartoon, and if there is going to be some violence, you will know because robots will suddenly be there. Yes. And it's like, we're just going to establish that this isn't a person real quick because we want to see Wolverine stab somebody.
Also, like, they could have maybe set up the shield earlier so it didn't come out of nowhere. The only thing they do set up is the fact that Jefferson's gun won't penetrate the walls or anything. It only explodes on organic contact. If that was setting up something, it wouldn't have done anything to the window.
I mean, it's one of those moments, isn't it, where he might as well go for the old Terry Nation thing of space bullets.
Space bullets.
Oh, there's one other thing in my notes I wanted to briefly talk about because I thought it was adorable. It's that scene where the doctor's talking about how great humans are. And then he says to Zach, I'm going to hug you. Is that all right? And he's like, suppose so. And then they hug. And it's just very adorable.
The very, like, low-key, like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting that the captain's not weirded out by it. He's like, yeah, sure.
And they both seem to get comfort from it. Like, the doctor and Zach both seem to enjoy it. Like, I think things have been stressful, and Zach is like, this is actually nice. I needed that, yeah.
Watching this, was actually surprised, because I knew I really liked this two-parter.
Yeah.
I was surprised how much I was like, Zach is a really good character, and I don't remember necessarily thinking that the first time, but like this time around, I was like, he's just so good. I just love him so much.
Yeah, you really like that bit where Rose is like, I'm not leaving, and he's like, oh, that's great, and then knocks her out.
Because that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I would be like, bad decision, let's go.
The only other note is also involves Zach. Torchwood update. He says they're part of the Torchwood something or other.
Archive.
Yeah, Torchwood Archive. So they are Torchwood, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, we never quite find out how far. Obviously, this is set far in the future. We never quite find out how far. You know, they don't even go for the Moffat thing or like the 51st century or the 41st century or the century that Moffat he's like that he's referencing Talons in when he keeps using it. But yeah, you just presume it is a version of Torchwood or an evolved version. It's like watching this, I was like, oh yeah, this was season 2, wasn't it? Of course they were going to mention Torchwood at some point. I'd forgotten what the word of the season was while watching it.
So yeah, that's all of my notes. Is there anything you guys wanted to talk about?
I guess it is interesting that given what's coming up in Doomsday with Rose being separated from the TARDIS permanently, that you have a kind of mirror moment here of the TARDIS disappearing for both of them. Also, I have a feeling this is actually the last story they filmed together. Like, I think they filmed Doomsday before this. I could be wrong, but I've got that in my head as one of those interesting facts.
I don't remember seeing that in my research, but it could have happened.
I could be wrong then, but that's something like that scene where they hug is like their last scene they filmed together or something, but I don't know. Again, this is me dredging up memories that may be entirely false. So,
good set, by the way. I'll say it's a really good set. Both the ship and the like pit with like the big statues and everything.
And they didn't turn the lighting up too much. You know, they again. Is why the beast worked in CG. The CGI beast worked in here. That there's some nice lighting in this one actually.
I also like it when spaceships and stuff are grimy and dirty. That's always a good idea. We're gonna take a quick break and we'll be back for final thoughts.
This is Drew Leiter from the Earth Station DCU podcast, inviting you to join us every week for DC news, comic reviews, and more. This summer, we'll be checking out the Netflix series Dead Boy Detectives and the last season of Sweet Tooth. We will also be covering the comic event Absolute Power, as well as the animated Crisis on Infinite Earths event. Don't get left behind. Subscribe to the Earth Station DCU podcast today.
And we're back. Toni, do you know what time it is?
I do.
What time is it?
Actually, I don't know what time it is. What time is it? It's almost 3 o'clock.
I'm very proud of you for being able to read the time on my computer. But what do we do at 2:56 p.m. Eastern Time?
Whenever we feel like, really. It's not like there's a schedule.
What are we going to do at this point in time?
This bit.
And then when we finish this bit?
Then we're going to do final thoughts.
Okay. Is the bit over yet?
The bit is over.
All right, it's time for final thoughts.
I think this is, for me, one of the strongest episodes of the second series. And as I said, it's got some of my favourite 10th Doctor scenes in it. I think it's a really strong two-parter, well-paced, well done, great cast. I think if you wanted to introduce someone to this era and this TARDIS team, you could. This is a good one to go for. I think it's great. It's got some ambition, but it's not afraid to leave things unanswered. It's thematically solid. Yeah, just two really great episodes of Doctor Who.
I agree. I think out of I almost said serials. Out of the episodes this season, it feels the most like it could kind of stand alone as its own thing. Like, I don't feel like you have to know too much going into it. So it's also like a good, hey, just watch this episode if you want to get into Doctor Who, because it's very, very solid, very, very good. It's creepy, it's atmospheric, it's asking a lot of interesting questions. There's great design. All around, just a great episode. I just want to know why she said that the planet didn't have a name and then said it was called Crop Torth. That's the only thing that's still bugging me. Other than that, good stuff.
What if it's a Mavity situation?
It's a Mavit, like it happened midway through the first episode?
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. All right, what are your final thoughts?
I don't have too much to add, really. I don't think before rewatching it, I would have told you that this is one of my favorite episodes, but this is one of my favorite episodes. It's a really solid two-parter. This season probably isn't one of my favorite seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I didn't like this before. It was like, I don't think about this season a lot.
Didn't you say this was the episode that made you start watching?
Yes. So this is the episode that was airing when I started watching, and I saw a GIF. Somebody had posted a GIF on a forum that I was in of like David Tennant in the spacesuit and like falling in the pit, and I was like, what is that?
Intriguing.
Yeah. And so it wasn't like the first episode that I watched. It was literally like I saw a bit of it and then went and started at 9. This is like the era when I started watching.
And then you finally got to it.
Yeah.
Now you've gotten to it again.
Now I got to it again.
Before we go, is there anything you would like to plug?
Yes, I have a couple of podcasts. There's The Real McCoy and Harry Sullivan is an Imbecile. Should hopefully be recording a new Real McCoy next week. I'd like to say both are regular podcasts, but I use the word regular the same way Donald Trump uses the word unity. Just not really a thing. So yeah, please, you can find those on iTunes and other various pod-based places to hear more ramblings from myself.
Speaking of Harry Sullivan as an Imbecile, Brian Snake was supposed to join us today, but he wasn't feeling well. So I hope he's feeling better by the time he hears this.
Get well soon, Brian.
Or else.
Or else.
Or else he won't, I guess. Is there anything you want to plug?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Yeah. Ask me again later.
Okay. I'll plug my store, mintypineapple.com/store. I've got a bunch of comics, including a new one called A Good Man, which is about a cat who is turned into a businessman to learn about capitalism.
I will be performing some of my writing soon, but we haven't even hit rehearsals or anything yet, so.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But if you liked this episode, check out more on Watch-A-Rassilon.com. You can also find our podcast, our Patreon, and more at Linktree/Watch-A-Thon. I also want to give a special shout out to Vince and EL for providing us with our amazing theme song.
Thank you, Vince.
Check out more of their music at vincentel.bandcamp.com. And tune in next time when we talk about a crazy little thing called Love and Monsters.
Love and Monsters is a good episode, and y'all are just mean.
It's a great episode.
I think it's mostly good. Mostly.
I can't.
We
can't end the podcast here, but you give one BJ joke and it ruins the whole episode. Unreal.
But until next time, keep calm and wrestle on.
Goodbye, and I love you in a platonic parasocial way.
Bye-bye.
I'll have to settle down. Get a house or something, a proper house with doors and things, carpets. Me, living in a house. Now that is terrifying.
You'd have to get a mortgage.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.